Hi, my name is Jeff Lazell. I am the Technical Sales Manager at X-Rite Color Management, and welcome to our webinar. Today we're going to take a look at the ColorMunki Display and show you just how easy it is to take control of the color management in your photographic workflow, and let you see how that's going to save you time, money, and most of all, frustration. So, if you're serious about photography as a passion, as a hobby, or maybe even a profession, I bet you've run into a few problems when it comes to color along the way. And I also bet that whether you know it or not, these problems actually are centering around the settings on your display. And that comes from the manufacturer. Most manufacturers, when setting up the displays at the factory, are far more concerned with how movies and video games and the internet are going to look than they are what's proper for photographic work. And that can cause a lot of those problems I was just talking about. Say it looks different on one screen than another screen, or even worse, when you go to print, they come back looking way different. So, that is where the ColorMunki Display comes in. This device will allow you to properly set up your monitor, your projector, and now your mobile device for photographic work, allowing you to get around those problems and, like I mentioned before, saves you time, money, and frustration. Let's begin by taking a look at the ColorMunki Display software. So this is the home screen that you're going to be greeted with every time you launch the software, and you can see that it's a very clean UI with just two buttons, Profile My Display and Profile My Projector. Now today I want to start with display profiling, so of course I'm going to choose Profile My Display. First thing it's going to ask you is what type of settings you'd like to use between easy and advanced and video standards. So down here is where you can choose to actually calibrate your monitor for video work using three standards. So Rec is the video standard used in France. NTSC is the video standard used in North America, and PAL-CCAM is used in Europe. Now up here, we have the choice between easy and advanced photo. The difference there is advanced photo allows you to tweak a few things. First, you can change the white point between D65, D55, D50, and a native. So D65 is what we recommend for photographic work, but sometimes you may have to shift into D50 for print matching. Again, that's something that you would do specifically for specific printers or specific labs if you're told. Leave that on D65 for now. Then you can also change a few things on luminance. You can say whether you'd like the ColorMunki to automatically determine the optimum luminance level for the display based on the ambient light, or if you'd like to set it at a specific condition. Now, in general, I recommend to allow the ColorMunki to determine it based on ambient light. And the truth here is, most photographers will never really have to shift into advanced. For the most part, unless you're going into video, for photographers, leaving it on easy is just fine. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, this is where the device is going to determine the optimum luminance like I was just talking about. So, what you're going to do is you're going to place the device in your workspace, but to make sure it's to the side of your monitor. The only trick to this whole process is to make sure that when it's reading the ambient light in the room, it's not reading your monitor's light, it is ambient light. And again, it's doing this to make sure that the brightness and contrast of your display is appropriate for where you're working. Because past color, brightness and contrast are also very important, because that is how you're going to be able to read the highlight and the shadow details in your file. So, place the device to the side, like described and like pictured, and click Measure. It's giving me a reading of 144 lux, and now that is going to be built into the profile we're about to create. Next. So here, you have to remove the ambient light diffuser from the device to ready it for reading the calibration. Once you have, it'll read that you have, and it's time to place the device on the screen, like so. Now, once you're sure it's flat, hit Next, and tell you know that it's flat, and the battery of tests will begin. Now it's going to go bright, it's going to go dark, and it's going to go through several specific colors and specific shades to evaluate both your monitor and your video card settings. Once the battery of tests have been completed, you'll be greeted with this screen. The first thing it's going to ask you is how you want to name the profile you just created. I like to add in identifiers like the type of settings used or the white point chosen just to differentiate it from other profiles already contained in the OS. That gives me the ability to switch in and out of these profiles for appropriate times. For instance, a photographic profile for photographic work, but maybe I want to watch a movie on my laptop. I can now shift back to the stock profile because I didn't overwrite it here. So I've added type of setting and white point, and I'm going to hit save. And because I've already profiled this computer quite a few times, I'm going to overwrite the one that already exists. So this is going to be the first time you're going to see the new profile you just created. And fair warning, it might look a little bit off to you. This is because our eyes become accustomed to lighting amazingly quickly, and your eyes have become accustomed to looking at your display the way it's always been. So, trust me, even though it may look wrong initially, your eyes will adjust, you will get used to it, and the device did what it's supposed to do, properly set up your screen for photographic work. Now, the next thing it's going to ask you is how often you want to be reminded to reprofile the display. Now, this is actually pretty important. I know no one likes to be nagged by their computer to do anything, but staying on a regular calibration schedule is imperative. Because this may differ from equipment to equipment and type of computer to type of computer, but all displays will eventually lose the calibration. That's why staying on a schedule gives you the confidence to know your display is always on. So, for a laptop computer, I recommend recalibrating every 2 weeks. Just because the nature of a laptop tends to sort of expedite the loss of calibration, which is to say the opening and the closing and the going in and out of bags and being shaken around can kind of knock you off calibration faster than, say, a desktop. And for a desktop, I recommend doing it at least once a month. But again, this is going to be something you will start to learn on your own. You might end up with a desktop that loses its calibration every 3 weeks or every week. So, keeping on this schedule is a good way of getting to know your equipment. Now, if you are recalibrating on a very consistent schedule, like every week, and you're seeing wild shifts, this might be an indication that your display may be on its way out. So, right now, I'm working on a laptop, so I'm going to select a 2-week interval to be reminded to reprofile. Now, we get to review our before and afters. So before and after. So you can see not only was there quite a bit of luminance issues, there was also some color issues. The display was a bit cool before. So, for instance, if I was working on this photo and it looked like this, I might have added in some yellow to warm up her skin. But it turns out I didn't need to because it was my display settings, not the file. And later on, when I went to print this image, it would have been way too yellow because I never had to edit in the first place. Also, I was losing a lot of shadow detail and a lot of highlight detail because, like we spoke about before, most displays are set way too bright and way too contrasty for photographic work. You can also shift between different before and afters here. Black and whites are a very good example as far as highlight and shadow detail. And you can also add in your own image if there's a specific image that you know very well and you know what it's supposed to look like. This last card is going to ask you about something called ambient light monitoring.
Now, if you remember, in the beginning of the profiling process, we took an ambient light reading of the room to make sure the display's brightness and contrast settings, its luminance settings, were set properly for that lighting condition. Now, what if you work in a room where that lighting condition is going to change? Say, near a large window or something like that. If you start editing at, say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the lighting in that room will have changed because the sun will have moved across the sky. So, if constant lighting isn't available, we give you this option to get rid of that variable of moving light. So, you can actually set the device to check the room at an interval of a couple minutes, every 5 minutes if you want, and let you know if the ambient light has changed. You can actually have the monitor auto-correct or notify you about significant ambient light changes. And so just like we did before, you place the device attached to the computer off to the side, not in front of the monitor, and it will read the room every 5 minutes. And like I said, keep you abreast of ambient light changes. That concludes the monitor profiling portion of the ColorMunki Display software. However, if you're someone that utilizes multiple displays, your process is going to be slightly different. And I want to show you that really quick right now. So when you begin, again you hit Profile My Display, and this time you'll have an option between the two you want to profile, and something called Display Match. So what you would do here is go through the process just like we normally did, selecting your primary display. Then, select the secondary display and click Display Match. And this will do its best to match the secondary display to the profile you just created for your primary display. So after you've clicked this, move the software over to the other display, and then continue the same exact way we just did. Now, I'd like to go over Projector Profiling. So, to do that, we go back to the home screen, and instead this time, we choose the Profile My Projector button. First thing it's going to ask you is to choose your projector. And once you do that, it's then going to shift onto the projector screen. Next, just as it did when you were profiling a monitor, it's going to ask you what type of settings you'd like to use, easy or advanced. If you shift into advanced, you get the ability to change the target white point of your projector into either D50 or D65. Now, again, we recommend native, and the majority of the time, that's what you want to stick to. So, if we're going to stay in the recommended, we can stay in the easy function. Next, it wants you to set up the ColorMunki for reading a projector. Now, the ColorMunki's ambient light diffuser doubles as a stand for this function. Also, if you're in a situation where there is no table or the projector is very far away from the screen, the ColorMunki has a mount on the bottom so it can be attached to a tripod. Now, it's going to give you instructions on how best to position the ColorMunki for profiling a projector. First, you want to look at the height of the projected image, or the screen. You do not want the ColorMunki to be at a distance more than 3 times the height of the projected image. It's for that reason, again, we give you the ability to mount it to a tripod. Then, you want to align the ColorMunki in the center of the projected image horizontally and the center vertically. When you think you've done that, hit Next. So the first thing that it's going to do is try to sight in the ColorMunki to make sure it's aligned projectly. Now you can see that the ColorMunki is pointing too low, and you're going to have to adjust it, and then try again. And it's going to go through the sighting process one more time. And once it's correctly sighted, then it will begin its battery of tests, and it's going to start flashing lights, just like it did when it was calibrating a monitor. And again, just like before, you're greeted with this screen where it's asking you to name the profile you've just created after the calibration process is ended. And again, I recommend naming it something different so you can differentiate it from monitor profiles. And you are good to go. Again, we gives you the before and after. And now, your projector is profiled just like your monitor is. So you know when you're projecting images, they're going to look the same as they did when you were working on them on your display. The newest feature on the ColorMunki display is its ability to profile mobile devices. So now you can calibrate iPads, iPhones, and select Android devices the same way we just calibrated monitors and projectors. We do this through our app, ColorTrue, which is available for free on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Now, the first step to using it is making sure that the device you're looking to calibrate is on the same wireless network as a computer with the latest ColorMunki Display software installed and the ColorMunki Display attached to one of its USB ports. Now, it's going to share this device over the network, very similar to the way you can share drives over networks. So you can see here that the app has found my ColorMunki Display attached to my MacBook Pro on the same network my iPad is on. And the next step is to have it connect to the device, remove the ambient diffuser, just like we did before, and place it on the screen. Once the device has been recognized to be on the screen, takes a couple seconds, it'll begin to run its battery of tests, almost identically to the way it runs the battery of tests on monitors and projectors. Once the battery of tests is over, you'll be greeted with a screen letting you know that your device has been calibrated. And also, the profile you created has been uploaded to the cloud. Now, this is a little bit different than the way we calibrate a monitor or a projector on a computer. When we run a calibration on a computer, all the changes are saved at the video card level, which means that profile is universal to the computer. This level of calibration is not available on mobile devices. We simply cannot write to the video cards in an iPad. So to get around this, we upload the profile to the cloud and store it there. So the next time you open the app, that profile is pulled down and applied. The benefits to this are actually twofold. One is that the calibration is not universal to the device, which means if you use your iPad for something else besides photography, say watching a movie or reading a book, the calibration we created for photography will not be applied. Another benefit is that other apps can now access that cloud and utilize the profile you created inside of ColorTrue. For instance, CamRanger, which is a wireless DSLR control app, which features a live view, can now access that cloud and pull down the profile created in ColorTrue and apply it to their live view function so they're now color calibrated as well. And there's going to be more and more ColorTrue aware apps coming in the near future. We know that most photographers use their mobile devices as a sort of digital portfolio. They're a very good way to show photos to potential clients or other photographers. And now you can do that on a properly calibrated screen. ColorTrue, as well as giving you the ability to create profiles, gives you an updated image gallery that pulls photos from your iPad and shows them using the profile you created. Also gives you the ability to do a few things. So first, you can see the difference between a calibrated and an uncalibrated screen. Now, the most drastic difference you're going to see switching between these two is going to be in highlight and shadow detail. Mobile devices tend to have very contrasty screens. So your blacks get crunched and your highlights get turned up quite a bit. So now you can see, after the screen's been calibrated, you get a lot of that detail back. We also give you the ability to shift between color spaces if you use a camera connection kit or a third-party app to bring in raw files in color spaces other than using sRGB. Also give you the ability to control the ambient light compensation depending on where you're going to be viewing the photos. And also you can shift through white points to D50 and the native of the device. Also give you the ability to simulate prints, because now you know the screen is properly calibrated. You can use paper profiles to give customers a good idea of what this image would look like printed on many different substrates.
All right, I hope that gave you guys a good overview of the calibration process for monitors and projectors, as well as mobile devices. And now what I'd like to do is answer some of the questions we got. So, first off, we got a question about the differences between the ColorMunki Smile and the ColorMunki Display, which we went over today. So the main difference for photographers between those two devices is the ambient light sensor and the ability to set a target luminance. Because like I mentioned earlier in the webinar, brightness and contrast settings on your display are just as important as color settings. Also, that device allows you, the display allows you to calibrate projectors, the Smile does not, and the display has video standards built in if you are a hybrid photographer, someone who's using their DSLR to shoot video as well as stills. Now, let's see, back to the topic of ambient light. Someone asked if they need to turn off all their lights when they edit or calibrate. So, because the device has an ambient light sensor, you can have the light set however you prefer. Some people do prefer to have the lights off, but as someone who worked in the production side of the business for about 10 years, I'd recommend leaving at least one light on to save you for some serious eye strain. Let's see, here we go. How far away does the ColorMunki have to be to perform a projector calibration? So that should be no more than 3 times the height of the screen you're looking to calibrate. You may have to guess on that, but for it to be most accurate, a tape measure is your best friend. Let's see. How long does it take for the device to calibrate a monitor? Now, obviously, we didn't make you guys sit through the entire calibration process in the webinar. So, in general, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. That's going to be dependent, of course, on your equipment, but it should never take more than 10 minutes. What I usually say is start the process and then go get your editing beverage of choice. And by the time you come back, you're going to be good to go. Let's see. Can this product be used to calibrate a TV? So it can, but there's some caveats there. The TV has to be attached to a computer. We do all of our calibration on the video card side, so we won't be writing settings to the physical TV. So when you disconnect, those settings are going to go with the computer. And it's also important to remember that this device is going to be doing it more for editing, so it's not a device you want to use to set up your home theater. All right, and thank you very much for joining us.